Hello and welcome. In this video I'll be taking a look at the features of the IndiaFoxTecho F-35 Bravo variant. Now if we look around the cockpit you can see that it's the same as the Alpha and the Charlie, except the buttons and some of the functions are different. So if we look over to our left hand side here, this button here will do the prolapse. So if we click that button, the back end will flop out and we're ready to do a short takeoff. Now this is also, you can key bind this to a button on your HOTAS or whatever. It's the toggle wing lights command. So if we go outside, I have mine set to a pinky switch on my throttle. I have an X56 Rhino, and just pushing that button puts it in and out of STOVL mode. And then there is one more feature that you can key bind as well, and that is the hover mode. So if we jump back in the cockpit, so if we put back into STOVL mode, wait for it to get configured, as you can see there the hover function is in blue, which means that can be activated. This means that we're below 40,600 pounds maximum weight for the function to be available. Now we can either go into the hover mode by clicking on the screen, or by a key bind for altitude hold. Now if I scroll along here, search by input, you're going to want to use toggle autopilot heading hold, and that will give you the ability to just go straight into the hover mode without having to take your hands off the throttle and stick. So there is that, and then also we have this auto takeoff function here. Now if we make sure the parking brake is on and click auto takeoff, now all we need to do is throttle up, take the parking brake off. I've got my hands off the throttle and the stick, and what it will do is it will take off in the shortest possible space. So put the gear up, and we will speed up a bit so that we can configure ourselves into the conventional mode. Okay, so converting to conventional mode now. Now if we go round, and I'm going to put it back into short takeoff mode, and then we'll try and get into the hover mode, but you've got to remember that you can only do these things within the certain restrictions. You need to be within limits, otherwise it's just not going to work. So if we slow right down, we need to be below 200 and essentially around about 240 knots to be able to convert to short takeoff and vertical landing mode. So we'll slow right down. Use the air brakes if you need to, or the simulated air brakes, as it doesn't have a dedicated surface for the job. So if we get to 250, bring it round, slow it down a bit more, ideally. Right, so we are now going to convert, keeping the throttle down, get the gear down, want it around about, I don't know, 70 to 80 knots. Ideally we would like to lose a bit of altitude. As you can see now we're in very slow flight, and it's only in very slow flight you start to lose altitude. But you have the ability to stop the descent just by pushing the throttle up, which is good. Okay. Using the rudder, which is very responsive in the STOVL mode, and as you would expect in the hover mode too. And movements are restricted. You can't go over 30 degrees of bank for safety reasons, and I believe it's the same in pitch as well. I think I seem to be fighting a bit of a side wind here. Right, and we're going to convert into hover mode in a second. And you can do that anything below 70 knots. So I'm going to use my hover button and do that now. And you see we're decelling. The exhaust has gone round to 103 degrees to stop us in our tracks. And as you can see, we are restricted to a certain degree of bank, and pitch is non-existent, because obviously the forward and the backwards is climb and drop. And seems to be going mental there, on the control panel. But yeah, like I say, you can move forward and backward in this configuration, but you have to use the trim switches for trim left and trim right. What will happen is, I'll show you here. If you see, obviously it's too bright for. I don't know if switching that to night might help. There we go. No, that hasn't helped either. We need to be able to see the ground speed, so we're going to be looking at this screen here. As ground speed, we're doing 1 knot, airspeed 3 knots. Now if I trim to my right and hold it down, you will see that if I stop there, I'm now doing 22 knots going forward. We're not dropping in any altitude or anything like that. And this is so that if we are flying up along a beam of ship, we can get into the hover mode, we can match the speed of the carrier, and then obviously slide across and then down into the vertical landing. But this also helps if you're at an airfield and you've not quite reached where you need to go, and you can simply just trim yourself there. Now if I use the trim left to bring the speed back down, there you go, we are now doing 1 knot again ground speed, 2 knots airspeed. I can slow that down to 0, and now I'm going backwards. If we carry on pushing left, you'll see that I'm now flying backwards. Okay, and if I keep holding, maximum flying backward speed is around about 19 knots ground speed there. So if I trim to the right again and bring the ground speed back to 0, you can see we are still over the runway. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to drop that down to the ground. Okay, so if we push forward, we will drop down to the ground. And like I say, movement is pretty good. See if I can do a circle actually before I land. So if I trim to the right, so I'm slightly going forward, and we can use the go sideways, and I'm going to use the rudder to go round. Let's see if I can get back to where I started from. There we go. Not far off from where I started, but you can go around in a circle. You can perform little stunts like that. I mean, obviously, if you're into your air show tricks, you can do some strange and wonderful things. So yeah, like I say, put it down on the ground now. I mean, we can even do a slow rolling landing, which is another function that the Royal Air Force is using. I can't remember the name of it now for the life of me. But there you go, we're now on the ground, and we can revert back to conventional, and we can taxi back to our parking. It's a really fun aircraft to fly. I'm really starting to like this plane now. The more I fly it, the more I get to know. Without it doing the crash to desktop, it's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. You can get into really small spaces. You can hide in trees. It's brilliant. I really like it. I can't recommend this module enough, really. You've got 3 different types of flying, all for that one price. IndiaFoxTecho have done a really good job, and let's just hope that the crash to desktop issues are resolved, and we can all fly without that worry. So I guess I could end it here, but I've not shown you vertical takeoff, so we'll get into the short takeoff and landing. There we go. Press the hover button and pull back on the stick, and we're up. There you go. It's as simple as that. And we go outside view. Excellent stuff. I mean, it's so manoeuvrable. I wasn't a great fan of it to start with, simply because I was used to flying the Harrier, and I just love how you actually have to fly the thing. You have to be part of the machine. With this, you're just along for the ride. So it's not as immersive as flying on a Harrier, but still a lot of fun. So we can jump back in the cockpit, and we're down. Convert back to conventional, and we can go back to our parking space. So I'm going to leave it there. A lot of features on this aircraft to look at. I hope I've covered them all. Auto takeoff, the hover functions, and just some little tricks that you can do with the aircraft as well. And I've nearly used quite a bit of fuel up. Anyways, so that's the IndiaFoxTecho F-35 Bravo variant. So like I say, I hope it's helped, and as always, I will see you in the next one.